Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio. I am your host, yes, you know me, Ed Dentzel. Hope everybody's having a beautiful week. Of course, we got a big deal tonight. By the time you're listening to this, the New Hampshire primary will be over. Still, I'm going to offer you some predictions, and when you listen to this show, you'll know if I got them right or not. You can email me at edwarddentzel@reagan.com. You can also follow me on Twitter, Dentzel Domain, all one word, no space in between. Started going to some writers groups here in the Tampa area. It's something that I've hesitated to do, and I don't know how deep I want to get into that at this point. But, I mentioned my books that are for sale on Amazon.com, and I've told you that I continue to work on my next book called The Comebacks. And so you go to these writers groups, and you can read pages from the book, and you get critiques from other writers, authors. There'll be poets there, screenplay writers, just regular playwriters. And I went to a group yesterday that had 14 people there, and you get to hear other people's work, and then they get to hear my work. So far, been some good critiques, some pointers that I can use to go back and maybe change a couple of the scenes that I've read for them. And then I'm going to be going to another group in the next day or so. So something new. Got to branch out a little bit. As I've told you, I tend to be a little bit of a hermit. And I really don't know a lot of writers in the Tampa area, but I'm going to strive to do that this year. But no politics involved. Go there. In fact, at the writers group I went to yesterday, after it, I was talking to one of the women, and she says, am I allowed to say this in the group? I'm a Democrat. She's here for the winter from Michigan. And she told me that I'm a Democrat. I didn't even flinch. When I get into the mode of writing mode and I'm just doing my creative stuff, have to put the politics to the side. Just have to do it. Because if you carry that in there, I carry that in there as a very strong conservative, very good conservative, very far to the right if you want to put it that way. If it breaks out into political discussion, I'm just going to have to I have to put that aside if I want to get any good quality critiques done and good quality writing done. That's just the way it is. So let's get to the show. There's many reasons that I don't listen to the popular talk radio people anymore. I've mentioned that at least once a week on this show, that I don't do it because I don't want any of their ideas to subconsciously work their way into my head. So then somewhere down the road, all I'm doing is coming to you, just spouting off what they say. I don't want to do that. I think that there probably are people who do that, take the easy way out. I don't do that. But yesterday, I was headed over to my parents' place. They're still here. They're going to be here till the end of March. And I flipped on my car radio. Usually, I listen to my phone in the car. Usually listening to music, whether it's Iron Maiden or Kiss, some group like that, or I'm listening to Pittsburgh sports radio. But I turned on the car radio, and Sean Hannity was on. And it's not that long of a trip from where I live to where my parents are staying. It's about 4.5 miles. In those 4.5 miles, I had to listen to him take a call from a woman, forget where she's from, who thought that a Donald Trump, Ben Carson ticket would be the best way for Republicans to win in November. It's like, you know what it was like? You know what I felt like when that happened? I felt like everybody in the world knew I was in my car listening to the radio, listening to Sean Hannity, and they planned it so I would hear that call right at that moment. Like it wasn't a coincidence. It was all planned. And in those moments, that call and Sean Hannity's response to it reminded me, oh, that's one of the other reasons I don't listen to it anymore. Now, I'm taking for granted that all of these talk shows get plenty of calls. If it were me and I had a national radio show through Salem or Cumulus or whoever else, I can tell you, I really don't know how many calls I would take. I come from the school of Jim Rome, who is a sports radio host. I know you either love him or you hate him. But his belief is more of him, less of callers makes for a better show. Now, he does interviews with well-known athletes, and maybe he even gets some personalities on interviews once in a while. But he doesn't take a lot of calls because he feels that the calls don't add to the show, even though he has a competition every year, the Smack Off. Me, I think I would be like that. That people that are going to call in, I don't know how much they really add to shows. And I even say that for the Pittsburgh sports radio shows that I listen to. I don't know how much the callers really add to the entertainment. I think a lot of hosts do it because they're lazy. And they know you take callers, they have to do less work. All they have to do is sit there and listen and then comment what the person. So the person is giving the talk show host the material. That's lazy to me. The truth is, I love doing my research for this show. Whether you think I'm right or I'm wrong, whatever I may say here, I love going through the internet, reading articles, and then forming my own opinions. So getting back to Sean Hannity, he took that call, did not pose one word to that woman as an argument. Just sat there and took it. And this is what has been driving us as, because I see what people are saying out there. I go to the websites where people are listening to talk radio, not just on Red State, but everywhere. They're saying how these talk show hosts are not giving Donald Trump a hard enough time. And there it was. I got to listen to it firsthand. Woman calls in, I think that, being the Donald Trump the way he is and the way Ben Carson the way he is, I think that'd make a great team. It doesn't matter that Donald Trump isn't conservative, has not issued any specifics that he could ever follow through on. And in Ben Carson's case, seems like a good guy, but his campaign is going through money like it's going out of style. There are many people who believe that his presidential run is nothing but to raise his profile so he can get large speaking fees afterwards. Many of the answers that he has given to questions during these debates are incoherent. I even talked about that yesterday. He gets a health question and blows it. And then a woman calls in to Sean Hannity, and they pick this call to take. His screener says, yeah, you got to put this one on the air. And Sean Hannity doesn't offer any sort of, well, ma'am, don't you think this? Don't you think that? Nothing. He let it go. And see, when you do that, if Sean Hannity is supposed to be a conservative, you send people a message. The message is Donald Trump is okay. Ben Carson is okay. That combination is okay as if it's good for conservatives, which it's not. Drives me nuts. Now, the woman right before I got out of the car, the next caller said, I can't get with that. It was another woman. I can't get with that woman who just called. I just can't go with Donald Trump at all. Ben Carson is a fine man, but there's no way that I would vote for Donald Trump. And you know what Sean Hannity's response was? He didn't say, you know what, ma'am, I agree with you. I know what you're saying. You know what he said? Well, what would happen if it was Trump against Hillary? Are you that so much against Donald Trump that you would vote for Hillary instead of him? And at that point, I turned it off. If the only defense for Donald Trump is that it may be you have to vote for him because Hillary might be the other candidate, that's not a defense. That's not a defense. And it's the same reason I've said if that's the combo, or even if it's Donald Trump against anybody else, I'm not voting. And this is something that I brought up before when this all got started, that if Sean Hannity, Rush Limbaugh, Laura Ingraham, whoever else you want to put into that, 25 years ago, had shown leniency with a candidate, man or woman, who is obviously not conservative, and they did it for months, none of them would be where they are today. They'd be gone. The only reason they're in the positions they are after all these years is because of conservatives supporting them. Well, conservative support would have dropped way back at the beginning had they flirted with somebody like a Donald Trump. If he had chosen to vote or chosen to run for president, say in 1992, let's say, instead of Donald Trump, it's instead of Ross Perot, it's Donald Trump, let's say, going for third party. If they would have shown support for that guy, Donald Trump, they would have lost listeners. But now after all these years, you know what? They're using people's goodwill against them. It's the very reason, and this is something else I want to tell all of you, that I won't be going to Breitbart.com anymore for any of my stories. I can't take it. I can't take it. You go there, it's like the TMZ of politics. You know what TMZ is? That stands for 30 Mile Zone, by the way. That is a site that just follows people around. It's like a paparazzi site. Outrageous stories there about entertainers and singers and everything else. That's what Breitbart.com has become. And it's done so under a guy, Ben Shapiro, who I've told you since I started on the show, I don't have that much respect for him. Now you know why. Now I know at Breitbart he has been writing a lot of anti-Trump articles, but it's obviously also to me that he has lost control of his staff. Obvious to me. And this once again goes back to when Andrew Bright started Breitbart.com, and it was just, big government before all those other divisions popped up later. If Andrew Breitbart would have started his website the way Breitbart.com is now, there's no way it gets as far as it has. But it's gotten wilder and wilder and wilder. It has strayed from Andrew Breitbart's vision. And it did it fairly quickly. I mean, it's not just today that I noticed that. You've heard me talk about that. It's been going this way for a while, and I just realized, you know what? They are just relying on a habit of mine to go to their site. Well, I have to break that habit. They're going to have to start earning my trust again before I go back in some other way. Maybe I'll run into an article somewhere else by them that'll eventually bring me back. But right now, they're just relying on the habit of many conservatives to go to their site because to me, they're not earning my attention. Likewise, and that's what I felt like listening to Sean Hannity, he's not earning his audience's attention. He's relying to them to tune in because it's part of their habit now. You know, there's a difference between being a customer and an addict. They both buy a product, but they do it for different reasons. This is the point I always try to make with the legalization of drugs. You don't have drug customers. You have drug addicts. That's different. It's different. Customers have choices. They can choose to go to the store today. They cannot choose to go to the store today. Addicts need to go to the store all the time. And so when the topic is talk radio or Breitbart.com, those places now are relying on people's addictions to their news, their entertainment, whatever information they're offering, and not their people looking at the stations, the host, the websites, and they're not going as customers. Am I getting granted, all of this is quote-unquote free, but are they getting their money's worth? That's the best way I could put it. My opinion is no. No. Because I look at them and say, if they started out this way years ago, they wouldn't be around anymore. It's not quality information. It's not true to the mission statements I believe these people, these websites had years ago. And they've done it for the glorification of a few more clicks so their advertising rates go up, at least in the website's case. And with the radio show hosts, because you have these rabid, kooky Donald Trump supporters out there, they're also trying to get that audience, so they want to speak well about Donald Trump. And even when a woman calls in, Donald Trump, Ben Carson would be the perfect ticket. The host doesn't even put up a fight. And when a woman does call in and say she doesn't like Donald Trump, Sean Hannity goes directly to, well, would you vote for, how much do you're not saying that you would sit home if it was Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton. How about Sean Hannity? How about you just say, you know what, I understand. If you have a particular person that you like, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, whoever else, you know what, I understand what you're saying. He could have said that and been just fine. He didn't. Drives me nuts. And you know what the funny thing about all of this is? Even just my personal experience. And I'm telling you all this because I want you all to analyze what you've been doing, where you're getting your information. Do you think that where you're going, those places, those people who are allegedly conservative, are they taking advantage of you? Would you go there if it was just for the first time? You just happened upon Breitbart.com. Oh, what's this site? Haven't heard of this site before. Would it still attract you as much as it does if you're into a habit of going there all the time? When you listen to Rush or Sean, when you're not listening to Red State Talk Radio, of course, are they earning your conservative time? Or are you listening because they're earning it? Or are you listening just because you've gotten into the habit of doing it? I think that's important. I hope you come to this show. Yes, I know. It's very biased for me to say, yes, I hope you're addicted to this show. But when you come to this show, I want you to hear a faithfulness to conservatism most of all. We may differ on a couple issues here and there, but I don't think there should be any question that I support conservatism first and politicians about 10th. But I see that there are too many conservative sites who aren't doing that, and other talk show hosts who aren't doing that, and writers who aren't doing that, and magazines that aren't doing that. Now, what I was going to say, the bizarre part of this, all of this is, I've started actually in I think I said a while ago, 6 months ago, a year ago, there's Red State Talk Radio, which is who we are. And then there is the blog, redstate.com, which is no relation to us. I've actually started going to redstate.com to their blog now for information. I think it's mainly because Eric Erickson, who started that site, isn't there anymore. And I don't have to read his stuff because really, I don't particularly care for him. But Leon Wolf, a couple of those other guys, maybe there's some women there too, are doing a fine job. And the truth is, they have stuck to their conservative principles, and they've been talking badly about Donald Trump. And they've been hitting Marco Rubio there, and Jeb Bush, and they critique Ted Cruz a little bit, but their main guy is Ted Cruz because he's the most conservative. And you know what else they're doing? They're monitoring their comments section to keep any comments, to try to keep the discussion civil. Once again, something that Breitbart and others aren't doing. So I give RedState.com a lot of credit, and that's why they will get more of my attention now than Breitbart.com will. So I wonder, all of you, my listeners, if you've been noticing that as well. I personally think, and I go to the same place as you do, I think you're getting taken advantage of. I think that we as conservatives, we have to look at these people who are dishing out the information and start looking at them with an unbiased eye. And I always want you to come to this show with an unbiased eye. All right? I want you to know that. But it was just unbelievable to me as soon as I get in the car, turn on the radio, and that's what happened. Sean Hannity, you're a disgrace. You're a disgrace. I don't know what's happened to you. I think I know. I just talked about it here. But if you did this 20 years ago when you started in radio, you'd be going back to construction, which I think was your job before you got into radio. Let's move on to something else. The New Hampshire primary. I'm going to make a few predictions. You'll know whether they're true or not by the time you listen to this. I think that Donald Trump is going to win, and in that case, I'm going to tell you the same thing that I told you last week regarding Iowa. Just shut your radios off. Just stay away from... You can come here to my show, but just stay away from wherever you go, whoever you talk to. You may just want to tune it down, tune it out, because there's going to be a lot of bragging. The Trump supporters are going to be totally insufferable. They're going to be all over Twitter, Facebook, any of the blogs that you go to. It's going to be crazy when Trump wins. That's just the way it's going to be, because that's the kind of people he attracts. But I think he's going to win. However, I think he's going to underperform. I think it'll be closer than any of the polls indicate. I guess there's a storm going on up there. There's still a question about Donald Trump and his framework there, the boots that he has on the ground. We know that almost cost him second place in Iowa. Remember, he was supposed to win in Iowa and didn't. So I have no choice but to believe that he's going to underperform in New Hampshire. Now, I'm not going to give you a number because the poll numbers have been all over the place. But whatever has been predicted, I'm going to say it's probably going to be 4 or 5 points, the average of all those numbers. It's probably going to be 4 or 5 points lower, I think. As far as the other candidates go, I saw the Emerson College, which got Iowa the closest, said that Jeb Bush could come in second place. I'm not a pollster. I don't know any more about what goes on in New Hampshire any more than any of you do, except for you people who listen who may live in New Hampshire. I just can't see him coming in second place. If that is how far New Hampshire has gone off the reservation, to use a cliche, it doesn't deserve to be second in the GOP primary. You know how I feel about these early states anyway. Iowa and New Hampshire, they shouldn't be where they are. They shouldn't be first and second. But if New Hampshire, after Jeb Bush has gotten single digits, in every single national poll in Iowa and some of these other states, that they'll actually give him second place. That's crazy. I just cannot see that happening. I think that Donald Trump's going to come in first place but underperform. I actually believe that Ted Cruz has an excellent chance of coming in second, simply because if there is a conservative in that state, he and his people will find that person. And they'll get that person to the polls to vote. So I expect him to underperform, which means he has a very good shot at second place. Marco Rubio, you have to figure how much damage was done to him on the debate on Saturday night with him saying that same statement over and over and over. I don't know. I don't know. It was ugly. I didn't like it. It was bizarre. I talked about it yesterday. But it very well could be that when the voters go in today to vote, that they just see that as one little hiccup and choose to vote for him anyway. That wouldn't surprise me at all. John Kasich looks like he's going to do well there. Once again, though, I think he's going to underperform. I think. I don't know. I mean, really, how many John Kasich supporters can there be? Really? I think you'd have to get every one of them, every single one in the state of New Hampshire there, to get him into second place. Now, he may do that. But I think Bush is going to underperform. Trump is going to underperform. I think Cruz is going to overperform by 3 or 4 points compared to where his average has been. Rubio, I think he's going to overperform by just maybe a point or two. Chris Christie's going to be a non-factor. Ben Carson, non-factor. Who have I forgotten? Have I forgotten anybody? Jeb Bush, Chris Christie. Did I get them all? It's so hard. I don't write them down in my notes. I just think this is going to be a Trump coming first, underperforming, and then it's going to be a tight battle for second place, which I think that Cruz, if he gets his people out, can win. Donald Trump, he's going to brag about it. He's going to say, you're just going to have to prepare for this if you run into it. He's going to claim that now he's the front runner. Iowa didn't mean anything. I wouldn't doubt that he will make fun of Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz, he couldn't cheat in New Hampshire. All right? That could come up. And then we'll be going on to South Carolina. How many people are going to be involved come South Carolina? Chris Christie says he's going to stay in through South Carolina no matter how he does in New Hampshire. I just don't. I know he's putting a great face on it, but he's going to be gone. I think Jeb Bush, because he has the money, he's going to stick it out no matter how he does in New Hampshire. Ben Carson, if he doesn't do well, I think he's still going to go to South Carolina. Marco Rubio, of course, is not going anywhere, but it's going to tighten. The field is going to get smaller. If Carly Fiorina sticks around, she may make it to the debate stage now because a couple of these guys may drop out. So we'll just have to see. But I just want to, for all of you who are anti-Trump like I am, you're just going to have to keep this all in perspective. Just going to have to keep it all in perspective. That's the best suggestion I can give to you. It's just one state. It's one night. And if you read a lot of the experts out there regarding all of these primaries, nothing really starts until March 1st because a lot of states have their primaries on that same day. And that will show the ability for these guys, and if Carly Fiorina is still in it, to motivate people in separate states all over the United States to go out and vote for them. That'll be a big day. until then, these are just one-off fights. They mean something, but don't lay awake all night staring at the ceiling because Trump wins in New Hampshire. Please don't do that. I got to go to the break. You've been listening to the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio.
Red State Talk Radio. Lock it in and rip the knob off.
I know you're watching, so pay attention. You hate my freedom, my religion, and my country. You hate me for speaking my mind. You try to control me with violence and intimidation. You think you can muzzle me with fear? Don't ever confuse me for my politicians or my media. I am an American, free-born and free-bred, and I will call you out for who you are. An Islamic extremist who would kill me for my beliefs. You don't intimidate me. My freedom is more powerful than anything you can possibly do, and I will never, never surrender my rights to your terror. I will say what I think, worship according to my beliefs, and raise my children how I see fit, and I defend it all with the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. I cower to no one, because I am the National Rifle Association of America, and I am freedom's safest place.
This is Donna Fiducia. For 26 years, I was a member of the mainstream media, most recently as an anchor at the Fox News Channel. Ladies and gentlemen, the mainstream media has failed you miserably. Red State Talk Radio will not fail you. Tune into Red State Talk Radio at redstatetalkradio.com, the dominant force in conservative Internet talk radio.
I lost my brother Frank in the Battle of Iwo Jima.
He served on 4 combat tours.
In Vietnam,
in Iraq,
Afghanistan.
There's a life that was lost behind that pin.
I put it on for my wife.
For my husband.
My brother.
My dad.
My son.
We wear it because we honor those that we lost.
To learn more about the stories behind the Gold Star Pins, visit goldstarpins.org.
This is Jeff Carlisi from the Band 38 Special. You're listening to Red State Talk Radio. Lock it in and rip the knob off.
Back at the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio. Let's move on to the Democrats before I move away from New Hampshire and its primaries. Got to remember the Democrats are there tonight. It's a two-way race between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. I don't know how many liberals and Democrats listen to this show. I can't imagine it's very many. However, it looks like Bernie Sanders is going to run away with the Democrat vote tonight, much more than Donald Trump is. The Republican race tonight will, even though I don't know how close it's going to be, it will be much closer than the Democrat race. And my suggestion to Hillary supporters, and I have no reason to give them any support or any encouragement, and they surely have no reason to listen to me, but I'm going to do it anyway. That I think that you have to handle Bernie Sanders winning the same way that on the Republican side, the rest of us are going to have to handle Donald Trump winning. Just going to have to keep it in perspective. Just going to have to keep it in perspective. You're just going to have to step away from politics for a couple days, let Bernie Sanders and his supporters have their fun, let them brag, don't check your Twitter feed, Don't check your inbox at Facebook from all your Democrat friends who are voting for Bernie Sanders and how they won this one and Hillary couldn't cheat in New Hampshire, unlike what might have happened in Iowa. Just got to stay away from it. However, I will say something. It's a much bigger deal for Hillary to lose New Hampshire than it is for those other Republican frontrunners to lose New Hampshire. Trump winning on the Republican side is not as big a deal as Bernie Sanders winning on the Democrat side. And for us, as anti-Trump people, we have to keep that in perspective. No matter how bad tomorrow is, it's way worse for those Hillary people. Just keep that in mind. Even though I know that Hillary has those super delegates wrapped up. But if this continues for her, it gets embarrassing. Whereas Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, here's the truth about all this regarding them. If they lose, Donald Trump gets the nomination, and I don't like thinking about that. Those guys, they're young guys, they can come back. Donald Trump, next 4 years, makes a total mess of it. And finally, that spell will be broken regarding all of his supporters. I think eventually it will happen. Unfortunately, it's going to have to take place in a real-world setting, which is funny since Donald Trump is a reality show star. 4 years from now, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, whoever else, they'll have another shot. For Hillary, this is it. This has to work this time. So it's a much bigger deal for her supporters. Mm-hmm. And also for us, that it's just a different situation. And we have so many more people. We have a better bench people down the road who can run for president somewhere down the road. But what you're seeing in 2016 is the squeezing out of every last person on the bench that the Democrats have or are choosing to run. Keep in mind, the other two people that could jump in, Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren, they're not spring chickens either. Big stark difference, even though I know Donald Trump is not a youngster himself. But definitely a difference. There's no way Hillary Clinton wins tonight. And I'm sure that she already has her concession speech written. So keep that in mind for all us people who know that Donald Trump is going to win tonight. Hey, just be happy he didn't win in Iowa. That, as I told you a week ago, had he done that and then we were going into New Hampshire where it was looking like he would win again, big trouble. But I'm hoping that come South Carolina and then other states and March 1st with all those states involved, that the ground game is going to start playing a much, much bigger deal. And also we're going to be going to some states where the rules are a little bit different regarding the primaries and who can vote. And also we're getting into some more conservative states, which I think is going to tamper down a lot of Trump support. I also think that some guys are going to be dropping out, and I don't see their supporters going to Donald Trump. In fact, there's already, Rand Paul dropped out. It looks to me like his people have gone to Ted Cruz, and we'll take him. That's nice. So, just got to keep it in perspective tonight. Let's move on to something else. Kind of a funny story that I wanted to touch upon before I go back into the serious stuff. Jazz Shaw, who is a writer, a blogger at hotair.com, and I've mentioned his name a couple times before. I find myself agreeing with him quite a bit. I'm going to say 80% of the time. He talks, he comments on a story that came out of Vermont or up there in the New England states about a married couple who The woman is a Bernie Sanders fan, and the man is a Hillary Clinton fan. And first of all, what caught my eye was, it's interesting that the woman's going for the guy and the guy is going for the woman. And there's another story. I want to talk about Gloria Steinem before this is all over today. Hopefully I'll get to it. I meant to do it yesterday. I just ran out of time. But Jazz Shaw was talking about mentioning what it's like to be in a marriage, in a relationship with somebody who doesn't think like you do politically. Because he, as he explains in this article, his wife is a Democrat, is a liberal, and is a huge Bernie Sanders fan. Of course, Jazz Shaw is a conservative. And he tells the story, and where I'm going with this is, as I've told you, I'm single, I'm 45 years old. I've had plenty of girlfriends, maybe about the average. I don't even know what the average is. It seems pretty average to me. My standards with women are fairly high, at least that's what other people think, or they've told me. And the point is, I don't mind being by myself too much, which is why I spend a lot of time at home. But I can tell you, I could never date a liberal woman. Never. Could never date one, could never be married one. Why? Because I wouldn't be able to respect her. I don't respect liberals. If you don't catch that on this show, maybe you aren't listening. I can be nice to them. I have friends who are liberals who I worked with in Las Vegas. I have a few liberal friends here in Florida. But really, when it comes to their minds, I don't respect their minds. They're nice people. They'll pull over and maybe help somebody with a flat on the side of the road. But when it comes to making important judgments on good versus evil and right and wrong, I have no confidence in them. That's, if I was a conservative, whether I was a man or a woman, and I was in a relationship with somebody of the opposite political persuasion, that's what would always be on my mind. Now, maybe I'm overstating it. Jazz Shaw is not a youngster. He's much older than I am. I'm going to take for granted he's been married for at least a few decades. That's worked out for him. I would urge you all to stay away from that, even though I've never been married. But I would just tell you, because my thinking would also be, yeah, she's a nice person. She's attractive. She's educated, all of this. And she's not one of these kooky leftist feminist liberals, but she just votes Democrat. What are my kids going to be? Do I really want to get into a situation down the road where we have children? And granted, I'm 45 years old. I know those chances are getting smaller and smaller, but when you're a guy, you can put that off for a while. And if you can have the opportunity to attract, younger women, 10 years younger, something like that, who knows? I'd be wondering, do I really want to fight for my kid's political mind somewhere down the road with my wife? Would I want to do that? In the end, kids are going to pick their own religious denomination, whether, hey, we have Christian parents who kids ends up being atheists, and I know liberal parents and their kids end up being conservative. So I suppose anything can happen. But the last thing I want to do is get into political discussions and arguments with my wife with our kids there. I don't think I want to do that. And so I give people who have chosen to be in long-term relationships with somebody of a different political ideology all the credit in the world. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do it. Funny thing is, Jazz Shaw had a funny story about how in 2012 he had been working for a campaign for a Republican who was kind of a little bit of a long shot to beat the Democrat in a House district. But what would happen is if the Republican would have won, Jazz Shaw and his wife would have gotten to move to Washington, D.C. and do whatever. And his wife seemed to be, hey, yeah, great. It's great. Yeah, we can do that. Sure. She still went out and voted for the Democrat. So, which is really, really funny. It's not even like she could sit home with the hopes of, we could move it. You'd have a job, some aid to a congressman. And no, still she went out and voted for the Democrat against her husband's, all the work that he'd been putting into a campaign for months. See, something like that would drive me nuts. That would drive me nuts. Because I know I wouldn't do that to the woman in my life. If outside of politics, I would not work against her to keep from her attaining her dreams. Something that in the end would be good for both of us, even though I don't have much to do with it. I would not work against her for that. And maybe liberals just don't think that way. I don't know. Maybe there's the flip-flop of that situation somewhere out there with a guy trying to, kind of screwing over his wife some way politically with an election or something. I'm sure there's at least one example out there, but that would tick me off if my wife did that. And that's why I say I could not be in a relationship with a liberal. But it's a great story. I'll link to it at edwarddentzel.com. Let's move on to something else. I had mentioned Gloria Steinem before, and I guess we can pull in Madeleine Albright and Hillary Clinton into this discussion. A few days ago, I'm going to say 4 days ago, Gloria Steinem, she was all upset. And I want you to know, since then, she has come out to apologize and kind of explain herself. But I think that you also have to look at that knee-jerk reaction. And what her point was is all of these young women, these college-age women who were going out and supporting Bernie Sanders. Gloria Steinem says that, well, the only reason they're doing that is because they're boy crazy. And there's a lot of men. I guess what she's trying to infer, or is it insinuate? I always get those two words mixed up. What she's trying to say is that there's these men, they're not voting for Hillary Clinton because she's a woman, so they're voting for Bernie Sanders. And then women, because they're so boy crazy, they just follow the men right to Bernie Sanders. Well, Gloria Steinem is also saying there can be no conceivable way that a woman in her own right mind, in her own just little brain here, could ever decide that Bernie Sanders is a better candidate over Hillary Clinton. Now, I don't know. I think both those candidates stink. But trying to put myself in the mind of your average Democrat, and if I try to get inside the mind of Gloria Steinem, I think that's what she's thinking. That these women, they're doing something against Hillary Clinton by not voting for her. They should just vote for her because she's a woman. And this, and what I'm saying here is not new. But I would, and Madeleine Albright has also gone on to say that those women who aren't voting for, those young women, young voters, who aren't voting for Hillary Clinton, there's a special place in hell for them, which I guess is a saying that Madeleine Albright has used before somewhere. In reading one of the articles, I got that idea. I don't know where. Didn't look into that. Well, I just have a couple things to say about this. If women are truly, quote-unquote, boy crazy in the 21st century, it's because of feminism. Okay? Let's keep that in mind. If women are following boys around to a particular candidate or a particular ideology, it's because of feminism. And you got to keep this in mind. Since the sexual revolution, of which Gloria Steinem was a supporter of it, we know that women, how do I put this? It's a family show. Women became, it seems, I was born right in the middle of that, by the way, in 1970. It seems that women became a little more easier, can I say that? During the sexual revolution and equal feminist rights and women's rights. Does it not seem like that? I think it does. Whereas it used to be, before this all happened, that guess what? Men had to chase women around. Right? Women weren't, before then it was, women could. There wasn't a law against it. But it wasn't appropriate for women to chase boys around. It wasn't appropriate for women to ask men out on dates. It wasn't appropriate for women to call boys on the phone. It was with the sexual revolution and everything that feminists got, everything that they wanted. And what happened? They liked women following boys around back then because you know why? They wanted women to be more like men. So once again, we get to that paradox that for years these women say how bad men are, and what do they try to do? They try to turn women into men. Now for us guys, I guess it's been pretty good. Now I know there's been a lot of fallout from that. A lot of divorces, a lot of children born out of wedlock, a lot of alimony, a lot of child support, and that all is not good. Okay? But for us guys and the desires that we tend to have, it sure did get it seemingly a lot easier. And that's as far as I want to go on a PG show. So if Gloria Steinem and Madeleine Albright and whoever else are complaining about women chasing boys around, well, maybe it's because they've been conditioned to over all of these years. Because you've been so intent on saying, well, you women, you can be just like men. Well, what do men do? Men chase women around. There's a lot more cases of men stalking women than women stalking men, even after all these years. That's what I just don't know. It just is a funny, it's dark. It's not funny. It's darkly humorous. These women, women have gotten, Gloria Steinem has gotten everything she ever wanted regarding women and her idea of women's rights in this country. She has gotten everything that she's wanted. And still she's not happy. And she thinks it's a surprise of what these young women are doing. I don't think that's the case. I think there's just a lot of young women who don't know who Hillary Clinton is, don't know why she's popular. They know she was married to a president. It just seems to me that Bernie Sanders has done more in attracting younger people. Now, whether it's going to translate into him winning, I don't know. But if these young women are chasing boys around, and that's why they're being drawn to Bernie Sanders, it's because of Gloria Steinem, not despite her. That's my point of view. You've been listening to the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio. You can find my books at Amazon.com. You can email me at EdwardDentzel.com. Or EdwardDentzel@Reagan.com. You can go to Twitter. Dentzel Domain is my handle there. EdwardDentzel.com is my website. EdwardDentzel.com/book. You can download my first chapter of my next novel, The Comebacks. You can find my shows at SoundCloud, YouTube, Podbean. You can also find me on Facebook and LinkedIn. You've You've been listening to the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio, and I hope you all have a great night.